So Infinity Ward finally showed off the first footage of its quote E3 award-winning upcoming Modern Warfare multiplayer gameplay with a 2v2 game mode simulcasted on the 4 different streams of the players involved in the match, with the footage in the background from TP's stream since he's the only actual Call of Duty Pro player that was playing it. And I don't really quite understand how Syndicate still gets invited to these things after the whole CSGO lotto baiting children to gamble fiasco that basically had T. Martin fall on his sword, while Tom seems to have gotten away with it because kids these days have such a short attention span before amnesia kicks in. Anyways, as far as the reveal itself goes, I really like the format of showing off actual matches of the game in this early build versus a fake demo via pre-rendered scripted trailer with false advertising all over the fucking place, like how Black Ops 4's time to kill is minuscule in his trailers, yet it takes longer than anything but evolution and erosion when actually playing the game. This way we get to see exactly how the game plays with all of its faults and quirks, instead of just a highlight reel showing off only the positive aspects of the gameplay, which I'm going to show clips of some interesting things I picked up on later in the video. That being said, this 2v2 mode was probably the wrong thing to showcase first, since a lot of what we've seen probably doesn't even translate over to the normal multiplayer modes of the game, considering that there's already a lot of damage control from the developers in the form of tweets and apologists on Reddit using the same rationale to defend some of the things that people don't like about it. Unfortunately, we've got to wait until August 1st to see more of the core multiplayer, which actually seems very late to me since we usually have a demo sometime during that month. But this reveal definitely left me with more questions than answers, which is not what you want from an advertisement. And let's be honest, this is really supposed to just hype your game up. Until then, the 2v2 game mode named Gunfight, which, by the way, why do they feel the need to rename it from Face Off, which was a much better name, but it seems to be more like a competitive game mode than one that would be in a normal pubs match. There are no custom loadouts, and each player gets the exact same loadout upon starting a round, and it changes every other round, although I couldn't figure out if the loadouts were just random or if they always rotate through a specific set of them, because competitive Call of Duty removes a lot of the random aspects to reward skill over luck. The mode forces action with a timer before a neutral objective can be capped in order to win the round, and certain variants of Gunfight have wall pickups like in the Zombies mode, so there will be power points around the map. Could this replace the esports modes for Call of Duty, since anything that the competitive community would normally ban would just not be included in the rotating set of loadouts? Otherwise, this will probably be relegated to a side section of the game that barely anybody plays, much like the 1v1 pit in Call of Duty World War II and the aforementioned face-off game modes in Modern Warfare 3. So then why bother showing off a mode that is going to be niche in your upcoming game before the most popular part of the Call of Duty game? It just makes no fucking sense to me. Anyway, some more deets about the mode. We did see 3 different maps that look all like maps from prior Infinity Ward games, with King basically being a smaller version of Kill House, Stack is like a reworked Octane mixed with Shipment, and Pine like the forest part of Prison Break. There is no health regeneration in this mode, but there is a stim shot tactical piece of equipment to refill health, but apparently there will be auto health regen in core modes with an instant regen via the stim shot tactical, and there is no mini-map except when you bring up the settings menu, where someone did happen to screenshot King with day in parentheses, leading me to believe that there are in fact night variations of maps, and hopefully not in the McKinn way from World at War. These are all things that were part of the set of leaks that I covered in my video earlier this week, link in the description in case you missed it. So that definitely leads credence to the veracity of these leaks. Apparently there will also be a tournament bracket style system, according to some other players who did get to play the mode way back in May that finally had their NDA lifted to chat about it, which makes me believe that most of the leaks that we did get are actually true, because there are YouTubers who in fact do have 411 that they can't talk about yet. So that lends me to surmise that the leaker is probably one of those influencers. Moving away from the gunfight mode itself, as far as gameplay mechanics go, the game looks very clunky, with it being really slow to pull out grenades, as well as the running and sliding just look very herky-jerky, almost Black Ops 3-esque, with there apparently being multiple types of sprint, where one has both hands on the weapon, and a second where you sprint faster, but you also take one hand off of your gun, which means a longer time to ADS if you're using that second sprint. This leads to slower sprint out times overall, which is something that Sledgehammer Games already tried with Call of Duty World War II, before being derided about the decision repeatedly until it was changed over multiple patches to line up with the quicker, more recent Call of Duty games instead of the older ones that most people didn't even play back in the day. So I don't understand why Infinity Ward didn't learn from those events with this more realistic mechanic. Maybe it's because the 3-dev Monty scheme is actually just bullshit and nobody learns from or builds upon the other previous iterations of the game. Additionally, on realism, the weapons seem to have a lot more recoil, but instead of it being in the form of vertical and horizontal drifting, there's a ton of visual character shaking, head bobbing, motion blur, and muzzle flash, which just makes for a migraine of a fucking experience watching it. Now, before before you all inevitably type,
Schwantz, you're just mad that you need actual skill to play this game instead of an easy mode point and shoot.
bear in mind that I do also play games like PUBG, Insurgency Sandstorm, Rising Storm Vietnam, and others that do have a ton more recoil with their weapons, but it doesn't look like you're standing on the fucking San Andreas fault line when you're playing the game. Hell, even Battlefield games have more recoil than Call of Duty does, and it doesn't make the game look like shit, and I'm sure it's not fun to play with it either. Along with this higher recoil mechanic, you could lean on corners and mount your weapon on surfaces similar to the MMGs in Battlefield that will mitigate some of this recoil, which then lends itself to the game playing more campy and tactical, which is not something I enjoy in a Call of Duty game. People prone laying down on the ground just to mitigate their recoil, yeah, that doesn't sound like a recipe for fun. The time to kill looks like any normal Infinity Ward game, and when looking at the health meters on the UI, that, by the way, definitely resembles Modern Warfare Reimagined, but going back to 100 health after a long time to kill with 150 health in Black Ops 4 is a step in the right direction. The weapon and game sounds are a lot beefier, with the exception of the player callouts, which are clearly just text-to-speech right now in this early build of the game. The graphics themselves remind me of Modern Warfare Reimagined, just a little bit more refined. Some other random tidbits that I noticed and didn't like were some very strange behavior from the sniper rifles, being one-hit kills to the belt buckle, which shouldn't be a kill shot, even if the ADS time is much slower, like I mentioned. A one-hit kill pistol in the form of the Deagle, even if it's difficult to control recoil, I'd rather not have an Annihilator being available for use all the time instead of even just on a cooldown. Set and forget items like claymores and bouncing betties, which I loathe in any multiplayer game. Weapons clipping through walls on this supposed brand new engine. The melee system with a takedown mechanic that actually looks really cool like in Battlefield games, but check out the suction distance here. Holy shit, that's like Commando on crack. How will people that are knifers only like the slow animation as well as a very fast two-hit kill melee that's even worse than recent Call of Duty games, but at least it's not panic knifing, but a two-hit kill melee that's so fast that it's essentially a one-hit kill melee is fucking awful. And finally, some very bad hit detection on a lot of the kill cams in this game that are now playing in the background as some of these sniper shots or even bullet sprays seem to not even connect with the player models here. All these characteristics and design decisions lead me to believe that this game was supposed to be Ghost 2 before Activision stepped in and rebranded it as Modern Warfare, because nostalgia is a hell of a drug that sells much better than what would have been the sequel to the worst Call of Duty game ever conceived. To those people that are just claiming it's Rainbow Six Siege, you're way off. Even with the more methodical and tactical 2v2 that we were shown, it plays 1,000 times faster than Rainbow Six Siege, which gives grass growing a run for its money in terms of the pace of the game. It just seems like they wanted to make a more tactical game, but then realized, oh shit, it's Call of Duty, it needs to be fast-paced, so they slammed together all of these mechanics that just don't work well together. The leaning and the slower methodical play, then you have the momentum sliding and the fast sprint out. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The game definitely looks to play differently than other Call of Duty games in the past, which, being different, isn't something that I'll complain about if it's something that I do like, see the Jetpack games, but this slower, more tactical gameplay just isn't something that I enjoy. If the other leaks are to be believed, then this gameplay that was shown off even further cements my initial impression, being that this won't be an action-packed, fast-paced, arcade-like Twitch shooter that I like from Call of Duty, but again, that may change once we actually get our hands on the game, which is all that fucking matters. And of course, the microtransaction system, which we all know too well won't get introduced until later to skirt around the initial reviews of the game and the sales revenue that pours in from launch week before completely destroying the fabric of the game's existence with post-launch support like what happened in Black Ops 4. Even if you enjoyed playing that game, the constant barrage of nickel and diming, more like Hamiltons and Benjamins, with how the macro transactions have been handled, have alienated their core fan base who have already left the fucking game in droves. I mean, hell, some of the people that were even invited to play this game don't even play Black Ops 4 anymore. Those are the two things that this game actually hinges on: how it plays and how it's monetized, and most of us that weren't invited to play the game early don't know about either one. Anyways, what are your thoughts about the strange multiplayer reveal that for me left more questions than answers about a mode that isn't even what the core of multiplayer will most likely resemble? I've been the Schwantz27, out like nipples at a wet t-shirt contest. Until next time.